Welcome at Die Rheinpfalz and Tüchter's 51 states. Today we are in Frankfurt at the Consulate General of the United States of America, and our interview partner will be Patricia Lacina, the Consul General, who will be leaving Frankfurt after 3 years at this post. We'll be talking to her about Iowa, her home state, obviously about transatlantic relations, and about her upcoming post, where she'll be going after this. Consul General, let's talk about Iowa, the Hawkeye state, your home state. What in your upbringing there prepared you for a diplomatic career?
Well, that's actually pretty easy. I grew up on a farm, relatively far from town, with 10 siblings, my parents, my mother's father, who always lived with us, so we had 14 people in a pretty small house with one bathroom. So I learned how to negotiate when I needed the bathroom, whether you could lock the door, how long did you have to, be in the shower. All of those things have served me very well.
Excellent. So at which point did you decide to become a diplomat? Was that later on in college, or was there something in little Patricia's upbringing in her childhood that made her think, wow, the big wide world?
Actually, I have to admit this, I'm what you would call an accidental diplomat. I didn't set out to be a diplomat. I set out to work in development. I'm a teacher by profession, a special needs teacher, and I had taught for a couple of years in Latin America, and I decided I would go back, get a master's, and go back and work on education and development issues, probably in Latin America since I spoke Spanish. And I got to graduate school, and one of my professors, who was the chair of my thesis committee, said, "I'm not going to sign your thesis unless you sit for the Foreign Service exam." And I said, "You can't do that." He said, "You watch me."
Obviously, with this post comes the responsibility for about 900 staff here at the Consulate General in Frankfurt, one of the biggest missions of the United States Foreign Service. Was that maybe the biggest challenge you expected, or was there something else?
We had accepted offices from troubled regions that needed to find a home, and so I was a bit, I should say, maybe fearful that it hadn't gelled as a team. So when I got here, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that really it was very team-oriented and policy coordinated.
But then the pandemic struck, and that turned out to be probably the biggest challenge of all, right? I mean, how do you do diplomacy without actually meeting people?
It was made a bit easier because everybody was in the same situation, and not just diplomats, but bankers, everyone, contacts. How do we do that? And so we all kind of did that together, and I think maybe that was actually a bonding experience, but it was very difficult to try and convey everything you want to say, and sometimes on just a phone call, not even a Zoom call, you didn't even see their face. Just meeting new people, welcoming new diplomats, people you're going to be working with on big issues, trying to figure out who they are and what they're like on a phone call is a lot more challenging.
Just yesterday, Secretary of State Blinken was in Berlin, and he said we're best friends. Do you agree?
Well, I don't think that anybody can deny that Germany is one of our oldest and closest allies. If you look at history and all the different issues that we've worked on together, from, peacekeeping in Afghanistan to fighting the pandemic, we've worked together. Vaccines, of course, BioNTech, Pfizer is a great example, but Germany and the United States have always been able to figure out some way to go forward on difficult issues, usually together.
I understand you are a diplomat and the Pentagon runs the military, but President Biden has stopped previous plans to withdraw, and that has obviously made lots of headlines, as had the previous story of wanting to withdraw. What's your feeling?
The military and the whatever administration is currently in the White House They always look at where our troops are placed, how strategic that is, whether that's still what we need given, because the world situation changes so frequently. There could be at any point a situation where we need to reposition some troops somewhere else. It's a fluid situation. It would never be static, and you could never say, okay, this is how it will be going forward. But of course, the largest presence has always been in Germany. So that's not going to change.
As a thorny issue is taxation of these members of the NATO force. Is the U.S. frustrated with this? Because there doesn't seem to be, from the German side either, a clear
way forward.
Mm-hmm. They're all waiting for the courts to rule on a variety of issues.
Right, and that's where I know that it is right now. We've provided input, from the military, from, individuals that we've gotten. So I think everyone is hoping that there is a solution in sight, but timing, I couldn't say.
You mentioned how you're actually an educator. You have a BA in special education. And so I assume you have been interested in the German education system.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you particularly liked? Is there anything that you particularly disliked that sticks out?
I like how the U.S. has acknowledged how good the dual Ausbildung system is, and that different states and cities and governors are working with Germany to try and replicate that in a way that works for the U.S. Not exactly like that, but big companies like BMW who have a great program, trying to see how we can make that work somewhere in the U.S. So we definitely have a lot to learn from the Germans on that point.
Now the Germans are going to the polls.
That's
How nervous are people in Washington? How nervous is the U.S. diplomatic corps about what may or may not change in German governance?
I wouldn't use the word nervous, and it will of course be very interesting to see whoever is elected, what their priorities are, what the makeup of the government is, who are the different ministers of in the different ministries, and then how we go forward. But we know that we will continue to have a partnership that's very strong and secure, and that our values are, at the grassroots level, the same values. So I think people enjoy that, the speculation of, oh, how is this going to go? It's especially if you're a policy wonk, it's a lot of fun.
Security of elections. U.S. intelligence services have been very worried about tampering with elections. That's something that the United States and Germany work on?
It definitely is. We definitely are out there talking about our experiences, what is happening in other places that we know, so that we can share that information, and of course so that Germany can be as prepared as possible.
What's next for you after Germany, can you say?
Well, that's a good question. Up until maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I would have said, I have no idea. But now I know that I am going to New Delhi.
Wow.
I will be the Deputy Chief of Mission, arriving probably in early September. Very exciting opportunity, very big job.
Very big democracy.
Yes. So it will be very exciting. But I have to say, I'm very sad to leave Germany. This has been an amazing 3 years. I have enjoyed every minute of it. I've hoped that I have contributed to the strength and strengthening of the bilateral relationship and the transatlantic partnership. And I take so many wonderful memories with me, and I know I'll come back. So.
I wasn't sure if I would actually get to have anything in person before I left. My departure date is in 1 month, so glad we could do this.